Hello, Magic players and collectors. Welcome back to the Land Library. I'm your librarian, and in this episode of latest Loadout, I'm going over Lorwyn Eclipsed. This set released on January 23rd of 2026 and is a standard set, continuing the story of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor blending together after the Great Mending. So this is the first time both halves of the plane have been in a single set together, which leads to some pretty cool lands, and let's get into it. As a surprise to no one, the first thing on the list of returning lands is the basics. There's a set of regular basics as well as two sets of full arts, with one being Lorwyn and the other being Shadowmoor. Following the basics is, of course, Command Tower, coming in with also two arts, one featuring Lorwyn and the other Shadowmoor again. And this is a land that taps for a mana of any color in your commander's color identity, in case I needed to tell anyone. Then, another familiar land is getting new art, Evolving Wilds. This is a wild card fetch land, tapping and sacking to search out any basic and put it in play tapped. And yet another familiar land with a new look, Secluded Courtyard, which when it enters, you choose a creature type, then it taps for a colorless, or for a mana of any color, but it can only be spent on casting or activating abilities of the chosen creature type. Next up is a familiar land, but not in the sense of it being printed a lot like those other ones, but in that it was very recently introduced, so I was just talking about it a few videos ago. Which is Festering Thicket. First printed a couple sets ago in Edge of Eternity's Commander, this is the Golgari Bicycle Land, and it's already getting new art on its second print. But what is a bicycle land, you ask? It's a dual color land with basic subtypes that enters tapped and has Cycling 2, and that Cycling 2 is where they get the nickname Bicycle. But wait, there's another card introduced in Edge of Eternity's Commander, making its return already with new art. Vernal Fen, the Golgari Battle Land. Sometimes also referred to as Tango Lands, the Battle Lands have basic subtypes too, and enter tapped unless you already control two or more basic lands. I'm also happy to announce that the rest of the Shock lands are being reprinted. We just got half of the Shocks brought back into Standard in Edge of Eternities, and now we're getting the other half. These are dual-colored lands with basic subtypes that come in tapped, except you can have them come in untapped if you pay 2 life. The ones in this set include Blood Crypt, Hollowed Fountain, Overgrown Tomb, Steam Vents, and Temple Garden. These have super cool art showing half Lorwyn, half Shadowmoor, but also have borderless arts that instead of half and half, have Lorwyn on the front and Shadowmoor on the back. Now, for an interesting one, Primal Beyond is getting its first reprint ever. No new art on it, but it does have a different card frame, which gets it into this section instead of Rapid Fire. The previous print from Morningtide has a modern frame, and this print has the current Frontier frame. As for its effect, when it enters, you may reveal an elemental card from your hand to have it enter untapped. Then it either taps for a colorless or taps for a mana of any color, but it can only be spent on casting or activating abilities of elementals. There's also a land making a kinda weird return in the form of a token, Mutavault. This is a land that taps for a colorless or can pay 1 mana to transform it into a 2/2 creature with all creature types until end of turn. This token is made by a mutable explorer, and interestingly, since it's a token and not a regular print, Mutavault as a regular land is not made standard legal by this reprint. Only this token would be allowed in standard right now. And now on to the rapid fire section, we've got Ancient Ziggurat, Canyon Sloth, Cinderglade, Dragon Skull Summit, Exotic Orchard, Flamekin Village, Frontier Bivouac, Golgari Rot Farm, Gruul Turf, Infear Deadlands, Jungle Shrine, Nesting Grounds, Opal Palace, Opulent Palace, Path of Ancestry, Raging Ravine, Rakdos Carnarium, Riveteer's Overlook, Rootbound Crag, Sandstep Citadel, Savage Lands, Seaside Citadel, Sheltered Thicket, Smoldering Marsh, Terramorphic Expanse, Thriving Bluff, Thriving Grove, Thriving Heath, Thriving Isle, Thriving Moor, Unclaimed Territory, and Woodland Cemetery. This will be a pretty short section because there's only 4 new lands. In the main set, there's Eclipsed Realms, a multicolor land that chooses a creature type from Elemental, Elf, Fairy, Goblin, Giant, Kithkin, Merfolk, or Treefolk, and then can either tap for a colorless or tap for any color, but it can only be used on casting or activating abilities of the chosen creature type. Then, over in the commander set, there's Abundant Countryside, which can tap for a colorless or tap for a mana of any color, but it can only be spent on casting creatures, and it has a third option of paying 6 mana and tapping to create a 1/1 colorless shapeshifter creature token with Changeling. It also has an extended art version. Next up, Rain-Slicked Cops, the Simic Bicycle Land. This is the 8th Bicycle Land, with the 2 recently being in Edge of Eternity's commander, so it looks like they're planning on slowly finishing off the cycle. But anyways, this one in particular is Forest and Island, so can tap for a green or blue mana, and has an extended art as well. And for the final new land of the set, Sodden Verdure, another Simic colored land, but this time it's the Simic Battle Land. The battles are getting the exact same treatment as the bicycles, so this is also the 8th one. They're being printed in the exact same sets with the same colors and even the same extra prints, so this also has an extended art. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the last two. The rest of the shocks coming back into standard is huge. I mentioned the same thing when we got the first half a few sets ago. These are top tier dual colors that will undoubtedly see meta level play until they're rotated out again, but now we have all 10 available in standard. But that's basically the only thing this set is doing for standard with lands. The only other change to the pool of standard legal lands is Eclipsed Realms, which could possibly see some play, but I kind of doubt it would be very much. It supports a lot of different creature types, many of which are being used in standard, but since it locks into one type, it's not really that helpful in decks that have multiple creature types, which is pretty common in standard. And it's missing some of the most used types in standard right now, like humans and dragons. Additionally, it only really adds value in decks with multiple colors of the same creature type, which, outside of the stuff from this set, isn't really a thing in standard. But boy, is it a thing in Commander. One of the Commander precons in this set is a 5-colored elemental focused deck, which is one of the supported creature types. While it's not a super high powered land, there's actually a ton of typal decks in Commander that get pretty decent value from this. And then there is the actual Commander lands. Rain-Slicked Cops and Sodden Verdure are both pretty decent. Bicycles and Battles both have basic subtypes, which already makes them in the better half of dual colors, with a bit of an edge to Battles, since they can potentially enter untapped. But these aren't really a huge shakeup, it's just a nice addition to some already existing cycles for a slight boost to Simic. Or other colors that include green and blue, I guess. Abundant Countryside, on the other hand, is very good. It doesn't come in tapped, and it has a barely restrictive restriction on making its colored mana. It just has to be spent on casting a creature, which is one of, if not the most common, actions to make. And the ability that makes a shapeshifter token is extremely expensive, but it doesn't even really matter because you can just not use that, and having the option is still better than not having the option. This is a really good color fixing land for multicolored decks that gets more value the more creatures you have, and with an expensive backup option to add a changeling shapeshifter to help in typal focused decks if that's really something you want to use your mana on. For standard, this is only like a 2 out of 5. Adding the other half of the shocks is amazing and definitely worth like 2 points just for that, but that's really all the set is doing for standard. There's only one other standard legal land, and it's way better in Commander anyway. And then for Commander, this is like a 4 out of 5. This set feels really good for Commander. All of the new lands are great in Commander: creature support, typal support, super interactable lands that have basic subtypes. The only problem is, even though they're all pretty great, there's only literally 4. The theme is like a 3 out of 5. The theming of the lands in this one is pretty decent. We see a lot of the like Night and Day, Lorwyn, and Shadowmoor versions, which is really cool, but that's kinda it. Everything is more of like a generic place instead of some of the iconic locations of the plane we've seen before, and we don't really get any mechanical tie-ins to the theme, except maybe Eclipsed Realm having the creature types on it, but we don't get the classic stuff like Hideaway or the Reveal lands. The art is kind of a middle ground 5 out of 10. I do really like the art in this set, but there's just not very much of it. There's barely any returning lands with new art. The basics are cool, but it's more or less just the same art twice with different lighting. And the only borderless are the shocks. We do get a few extended arts, but there's not even a single showcase or special guest print to be seen. Overall, this is a 14 out of 25, which is a pretty respectable score. I think it's getting held back mostly from just how few new lands it introduces, but it also feels like a bit of wasted potential to visit some of the previously seen Lorwyn Shadowmoor locations with the new Eclipsed setting, or even just having a callback to some of the older Lorwyn mechanics. If you've made it this far in the video, please drop a like for Turn and subscribe for more Landfield content. If I missed anything, got anything wrong, or you just have questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next latest loadout when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles set comes out.